Hi, this is Gary Dranow from Park City, Utah, and the Gary Dranow Show, proudly broadcasting to you from Radio Evolve Rocks in Santa Barbara, California. Listen more and evolve. This is Gary Dranow from the Gary Dranow Show, and today's guest is someone who has spent decades operating completely outside the machinery and somehow still right in the cultural bloodstream. Andras Jones is a podcaster, author, and actor who's been doing this independently since the late 1980s. And when he says independent, he actually means it. Some of you may know him from films like The Nightmare on Elm Street 4, others from his podcast, The Radio8Ball Show, and The World is Wrong, or from his book, Accidental Initiations. But today, we're here to talk about the music, and especially about Lenny Bruce. His latest single is a cover of Lenny Bruce's Two is a Proposition, Come is a Verb, reimagined in the style of Live at Leeds era The Who, and that alone tells you a lot about where this conversation is going. Andras, welcome.
Yes, and I hate to continue to play the professorial role, but it's two is a preposition, not proposition.
Oh, that was my silly mistake.
But two is a preposition.
Preposition, of course. I had
Lenny
a brain gas leak.
It just happens. It happens. I'm not. Like I say, I don't love playing that role, but it is a role I've cast.
You got to do it. You got to do it. You make a distinction I love right away between independent and indie. You said indie is an aesthetic and independent is a life choice. You've been doing this on your own since the late 80s. At this point, does independence feel like a rebellion, survival, or just who you are?
Oh, well, I guess it's just who one is. When the distinction I draw is that there are independent labels that are called independent who sign artists. They are to some degree independent of major labels, although this is probably
is the distinction getting blurred, kind of?
What?
Is the distinction getting kind of blurred?
Well, I guess there's what it literally is. If you are an artist and you are independent, which means that you're self-funded or funded by just directly from your audience,
or your music is only on Spotify
or wherever, but as long as it's, the thing that I was is if you are doing it on your own, then you are by definition independent. If you are on an independent label, you can call yourself indie, I suppose, but then there's a very difference. If someone else is paying for your recordings,
indie is a genre, is it not?
Well, that's where it gets very confusing. Like, as it's a genre of music. If it's a genre of music, then can country artists and hip hop artists and jazz artists and blues artists and can they all be indie? And how can that independent moniker describe anything? I feel like independent is a state of being. It's sort of like working class. Like you're either if you can have a working class aesthetic like Bruce Springsteen, but no one would confuse him with actually being working class. No offense to Bruce Springsteen,
or him being indie in any way, shape, or form.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He could be called a working class artist, but he's not a working class artist. He sings about working class issues, but he's not a working class artist. An indie band might have they might be an indie band, but that doesn't. Well, first of all, I think it's a poor description. It doesn't really tell me anything about them musically, but it also that doesn't mean that they're an independent
because
band.
It could be applied because it could be applied so broadly, right?
Well, I just think it needs to be. I think that I like when terms mean what they say, but that's that's a perilous road to walk in these cognitively dissonant times. Words so often are used to mean the exact opposite of what they are intended to mean. So it's it's funny because I know we're talking like we're both a little bit we're not young cats coming up in the
We're
business.
long in tooth, man. We're long in tooth.
So I think we may be talking to a distinction that means very little to most people, because for the most part, every artist who's putting stuff out is independent now. And there are, some people at the very top. There are legacy artists who were part of an industry that barely exists. And then there are bands who might have, like, and my understanding of the industry right now is that labels are really only interested in bands that have already built up their own stuff. So everyone's indie, I guess, unless you are, uh, born in, unless you're born into rock royalty.
Unless you're Taylor Swift, right?
Or no, I was thinking more like, Sean Lennon, who I love Sean Lennon, but Sean Lennon's never had to be indie. And I'm not trying to like play some Nepo baby stuff. It's just like that anyone who has to build up their own brand before a label will be interested in them, which is the majority of work of any kind of musicians or artists I know. We're all indie at this point. And the only difference is if you happen to be born into the industry. And in that case, there's a different, you may have a leg up to be able to have other people within the industry build up that brand, so you don't have to do that independent work that most of us are doing. I guess the distinction with me is I've been doing it since 1989, 90. Early in that, trying to get signed like all of my friends. But usually when I took the meetings about them, they were so sort of insulting, not to me personally, but to
what were they trying to put your round peg into a square hole, or what was going on?
No, just like, yeah, we'll bring you on, but we gotta fire a member of the band because they're not good enough. Which my band was great. Or yeah, we have you have two records out that are, very independent, very distinct things. We'd like to put out sort of pick our favorites from those two records and put them out as their own thing. That was an offer that I got at once a point. And there was a point when I looked back, I thought, I probably should have maybe said yes to that. But the whole tenor of the meeting, of meeting an artist for the first time, saying you like them, and then immediately trying to change them, to me, that's just like a big, I didn't have the term red flag, but that's a big red flag.
I was just going to say red flag, so you rubbed
Yeah, like, do you want to work? Like, the question was what's the next thing you're working on? Like, if I was meeting, I'm the age of those guys now, older now. And if I was meeting with a new artist and I had those concerns, I'd be like, tell me about your relationship with that drummer. Like, if the artist is like, yeah, well, we're trying to find someone else, then I would be like, oh, I was thinking the same thing. Or if they're like, oh, he's my best friend, we
love him,
and then I'd be like, well, we got to get him up to speed because you guys are great, and what can we do to help him to get better? That's how you get that's how you talk to an artist, not we got to fire the drummer. If you start a conversation with that, well, I'm going to stay indie. It's like that's a power. It's not an artistic way of approaching an artist. So it's funny. I feel like I didn't make the choice to be indie. I made the choice to be independent and to to trust my art, and that's necessitated a life as an indie. And at some point, I took it on and have been like, okay, well, this is who I am. This is the kind, like, I'm an artist who, if you get my record, my fingers are on every aspect of it, and I have never changed. Like, I think him put out stuff that I'm not 100% proud of how it turned out, but I've never put out anything where I chose someone else's aesthetic or creative decision because they were paying for it, and so I guess I have to change the lyric. Never. And that's a good feeling as an artist.
You've joked before that you evaded ignominy of fame and distribution, which is both funny and painfully true. Looking back now, do you feel like you've dodged something or missed something?
Of course. I mean, don't we all feel like, I think we all live with regrets of the path not taken. I think I was just sort of saying, like, there's the upside of it is knowing that you have a body of work that really represents you. And for me, the industry has evolved. And even though I feel like I'm up against all the algorithmic hurdles and maybe some more that other people don't face, it's out there. And if people want to, an opportunity, people hear this and they're like, who is this guy talking about how indie he is? Let me go check it out. I think the music holds up. Um, do I look with envy at my friends who have more gigs, better gigs, what look to me like better gigs? But then I look at them and I think the ones who did get that fame and that distribution, I see them having to go out and sing the song that they were singing in 1992
over and over and over
and over
again.
and over again. And there's a certain, I think there would be a certain joy in that. But I look back, but if I felt hamstrung by having to stay true to whatever I was expressing as a 22-year-old, and here I am as a different kind of artist, I mean, I don't know. Again, I think there are challenges and hurdles to any artistic life. And I think every artist I know who has been this for any amount of time has some regrets about the choices that they made or didn't make at one point.
Or the band member that blew up the band before you could get signed back in the 70s.
But if you're an artist, then you take those, that becomes part of your story and that becomes part of your inspiration. And when I say an artist, I mean that, like, if you can't help doing it, then you might as well do it with some joy in the doing of it. Like, I'll give you like, I got burned out after putting out records and touring. And in 2004, my marriage, my wife and I got divorced. She had been with me through the whole part, was very much a muse, big broken heart thing. The band had broken up, and I lost my passion for playing music, for writing songs, and I tried to quit. I tried to quit, and I did to some degree. I worked in and around.
For how long did you take your hiatus?
Well, so I've in 2000, 2001, I was working on a record that I put out in 2018. So that'll give you some idea that in between, and I walked away from that. It was a crazy story. It's a record called All You Get. You can get it out there. I was working on it.
When you say you can get it out there,
it's on all the streaming places. It's on my website. It's every place that you can get independent. You can find independent music.
Got it.
But I had worked with these great musicians, a producer named Ford Peer. People who know Vancouver, the Vancouver music scene would know people like Veda Hilly or the Be Good Tanyas, Barry Morachnik, a lot of like a Peggy Lee, not the Peggy Lee that Americans know, but really, really great musicians. And it was a very much an exploration of what I thought was a sophisticated and complicated marriage that broke up, that ended in the middle of the recording. And I walked away, left it on a hard drive for a decade.
Yeah, I've got a really similar story. Back in 1995, I recorded my album Destiny Road, and 96, I guess, is when I recorded it. And I recorded it on Jefferson Airplane's 16-track machine that was on their airplane, literally. And
Wild.
Then I decided to move from LA to Park City, like one weekend, just got a wild hair and said, well, sweetheart, we're going up to Park City. And we flew in, and that weekend, I both sold my home in Manhattan Beach and bought my home here in Pine Brook, Park City. And but I left my music behind. And many, many years later, I mean, this is like 2021, Jerry Manfredi, who was both my manager and my bass player, shipped me this carton that weighed 60 pounds, and I had no idea what it was. I opened it up, and in there were the Ampex 16-track or 24-track tapes that was my whole album. and I had a local engineer mix it, and then had it mastered, and I released it in like August of 2023. So talk about leaving your music behind.
Yeah,
I physically did.
Yeah, yeah. No, that well, but I guess what I'm in the thing I was trying to explain, which is slightly different in that sounds like you made a healthy choice for your life to move to where you have built something. I walked away from music and crawled into a bottle for a little while, and it took me about 10 years to just claw myself out of feeling bad for myself. Became a bartender. I did a lot of other, I did a lot of stuff like helping other musicians, sort of like the way that like someone who's been in an abusive relationship will work with victims of abuse. As someone who felt an abusive relationship from rock and roll in the music industry, I worked as a booking agent for people. I had a show, like a podcast like yours, where I featured artists the way you're featuring me. And I tried to quit, but I don't know if you.
But music wouldn't let you go.
Well, for me, songwriting is not like when I write songs, and this is how it's functioned. Writing has always functioned for me since I was a kid. I really write my way out of problems, and so I didn't stop having problems. And if there's something
are you saying music is therapeutic for you?
I would say that music is shamanic for me, that it's magical. But it's not. I use it to get out of problem. I use it to solve problems. And yes, that has maybe it has a therapeutic thing. But I mean, like I've got myself jobs through writing songs, writing my way into a job, and not like playing the song for somebody else. I believe that songs are spells. So, which also is something I didn't know for my whole 20s, when I was putting out a lot of records that were putting out bad spells that I had to live with.
What were you reading at the time, or were you reading anything at the time that influenced you?
The time especially
of coming back.
Oh, of coming back?
Well, either during your 80s, 90s, 2000s, were you influenced by anybody in particular as far as an author, or after the 10 years, did you read something that impacted you?
This is perfect. Lenny, I mean, because we're here to talk about Lenny Bruce.
Well, I'm going to get to Lenny Bruce in just a second.
I guess.
All right, let me do this before we even get to the music. Well, first of all, we got to take a break. So
okay,
you and I will talk a little bit during the break, but folks, we're going to be right back with the most interesting man in the world, Andras Jones.
Just some toilet dwelling fool. You feel you slam a jammer itching, then you remember the golden rule. Pick 'em in the face, pickleballer. Pick 'em in the face. You got to pick 'em in the face, pickleballer. Dig 'em in the face. If there's a chick out of position, or a dude who can't return, you feel you slam a jammer itching. You gotta burn, as you dig 'em in the face, pickleballer. Dig 'em in the face. You got to dig 'em 'em in the face, kick 'em in the face, yeah, like a can of mace, yeah, totally disgraced because your points have been erased. Taste that pickle taste as I take you in the face, as I take you in the pickle ballin' face. Take you in the face, take you in the face, take you in the face.
This is Gary Dranow with Andras Jones, and I had asked him a question which he was in the middle of answering when I told him we had to take a break. So let's get back to what you were saying.
So you were asking about authors who've inspired me, and it's funny. Everyone thinks of Lenny Bruce as a stand-up comedian, but I'm covering a song of his, so it kind of makes him a songwriter. And my first and biggest interaction
life
with
is a preposition, come as a verb. That
to is a preposition, come as a verb.
Yeah.
And but my first interaction, like serious interaction with Lenny, was with his book, How to Talk Dirty and Influence People. And it really, like what we're talking about right now, that time in the wilderness. Like I imagine it's happened around a similar age for me when Lenny died. And I wonder if Lenny had been run out of comedy for 10 years or 15 years at that stage in his life, instead of being drawn into the addiction and battles with the law that he was, if he would have come out with us in a similar way. Like I feel like the trajectory that he inspired me to take, and other artists like him inspired other artists like me to take, is one that does guarantee that at some point you are either going to be in conflict or in exile from the thing you love doing that got you into it in the first place. For him, it's talking into a mic and connecting with an audience. For me, it's writing a song and recording it and playing it for an audience and connecting with an audience. Although, I'll be honest, more and more it's really about writing the song and recording it and then moving on to writing and recording the next one. But artists like of that type, of the Lenny Bruce type, of the Ricky Lee Jones type, of the Orson Welles type, and these are all, exemplars. I'm
people who live on the fringe.
I remain an acolyte, but
I was just saying, sorry, people who live on the fringe.
Well, and also I'm talking about people who are legends, Lenny Bruce, Orson Welles, and for me, Ricky Lee Jones, who I worked with for a while. So I know that she's a human being, and she's a colleague to some degree, but she's to me someone who is a huge inspiration. But she has a reputation for being very difficult because she is true to things that people don't understand when they're just thinking from the standpoint of the marketplace or whatever. But so when you're asking about writers who inspired me, I'm giving you a few right there. Orson, and these aren't authors. There's authors out there as well, but I'm more attuned to the writers of films, songs, and
wasn't Ram Dass an influence?
It's funny. Ram Dass was a colleague of my father's at Harvard. My father was a dream psychologist who taught at Harvard and different other schools in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I don't know. Timothy Leary probably was more of an influence when I was younger. I read more of his stuff. Story of the Psychedelic Revolution as told by Timothy Leary in his book Flashbacks. In retrospect, Ram Dass is a much turns out to have been a much probably a much more positive influence to have gravitated towards. But I just love these troublesome, muckraking Timothy Leary is an Orson Welles type. Abby Hoffman was another one who was a huge inspiration for me when I was young. I like these.
Hold on a second, man. As a
Yeah.
teenager, you interned on Lenny Bruce documentary and
Yeah.
actually handled his journals and tapes. That's not theoretical, that's tactile. What did
Yes.
physically being close to Lenny's words and thoughts do to you at that age?
I was cursed by them. No. I mean, maybe. No, it's funny to look back that in 1987,
How old were you in
Whitey,
87?
Robert Whitey, gave me, a 19-year-old kid, a box of Lenny's cassette tapes to play on my boombox, not backed up anywhere. Original cassette tapes from Lenny's collection to play on my boombox and type or write out notes about, and his own and his journals to go through and again make notes about. And that these are now housed at Brandeis University, where my father also taught, as part of the Lenny Bruce collection. But for a while, they lived in the house that I
So
shared with
you
like
were
8 other
literally a
people.
caretaker of his most important or his work.
Well, the stuff that's the most important to us as fans or followers of his work? Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I think, from some people I know would say that I was cursed by my fascination with figures like Lenny Bruce and other
Orson Welles.
troublesome artists. Yeah. Those are people who didn't lead easy lives, and emulating them is, not very, it's not very smart if you want to have a happy, successful life. So it's like I didn't really think of it until you said it, but if I was going to write this as like a screenplay or a movie or a story, the idea of this kid who holds this box that has this magical energy
The
that ruins his life.
the oracle's gifts.
Yeah. But it does. Well, the main thing it probably gives me a oversized sense of intimacy and connection with Lenny Bruce, which would lead to me carrying around this song, "To is a preposition, come as a verb," that I sing, like I recite it to myself like poetry while I'm driving, or I'll sing it to myself, and I've loved it for years. And when I say to people who are Lenny Bruce fans, "Do you know 'to is a preposition, come as a verb?" and they're like, "I don't even know what you're talking about," even though it's in the Bob Fosse film, and it's in Bob Whitey's Lenny Bruce documentary that won the Oscar that I worked on. Still, people don't think of Lenny Bruce as a songwriter. Maybe it's sort of similar to the way people don't know that Charlie Chaplin was a songwriter.
Hmm.
But they both have written at least one classic song. With Chaplin, it's "Smile," and with Lenny, it's "To is a preposition, come as a verb." But that's a very perverse and esoteric thing to be obsessed with for me to do it. And then I brought in my own fascination with the Who in terms of how it sounds, but just
Live
who's
at
carrying,
lead sound, right?
yeah, who's carrying around a Lenny Bruce song, that got him censored. Like, I can already see
Well,
that this song is
two
being
as a
shadow banned on
preposition, come as a
Spotify.
verb, was used as evidence in the courtroom against him, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It was that's the scene in the Bob Fosse film. They're playing that bit it's a really nice one shot where they're just playing the bit, and we're watching as the jury and the prosecutors respond or don't respond to each line. So yeah,
They probably just didn't get it at all.
well, but I'll tell you, I have noticed that this song, even though it's on all these different playlists, and I know that, and it's been getting played on a lot of different radio,
Hey
that
man, we're on the same charts.
yeah, I see that, and I love seeing it from Mark Platt. He does a great job getting us out there. But I don't know if you're working with Mark, right?
I do work with Mark, yeah.
Yeah, he's the one who
As a matter of fact, I just got a bill from him for my last 2 songs.
But on Spotify, according to Spotify, to as a preposition, come as a verb has like 15 plays, which I know is like not from an ego standpoint. I actually take it as a certain marker of pride because I know that there are more listeners than that. And this is the perverse Lenniness in me. If what I'm doing is worth censoring, would I rather have 3,000 listeners or know that I'm so dangerous to Spotify that they're depressing my numbers? Personally, as an artist, I would rather know that what I'm doing is worth censoring than have 3,000 anonymous listeners or 5,000 or 10,000. I mean, at a certain number, I'd rather have 1 million plays than be censored. But I take being censored as a sign that I'm doing something right. So yeah, I guess that's where Lenny has inspired / ruined me.
Well, and you chose to resurrect it. You wrote that fairly recently, right?
We recorded it in November. Yeah, with me and Ken Stringfellow.
So not as spoken word, not as comedy, but as a full-on rock track. So my question to you is, why this piece? Why now? Which you were getting into, but let's hone right in.
Well, like I said, I've been obsessing about it for a long time, and I've been not obsessing. I've been wanting to do this song for a long time, talking to different musicians. Hey, would you ever be into getting together and doing this? And I was supposed to get together with Ken Stringfellow of the Posies, and we got our signals crossed a little bit. I thought I was going up to his studio in the Northwest to spend a day in the studio with him, and he thought he was coming to LA, and he'd already bought his ticket. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's a totally different session. Like if we were in his studio, we'd be in the studio for a whole day, and we'd lock it out, and we'd maybe get 2 or 3 songs done or work on stuff that I had already done. But if he's coming down here, I was like, oh, maybe we can set up actually a cool session. And so I pitched the idea to him. He's a big Who fan, so I knew he could do the Pete Townsend bit. And I asked him if there were any drummers he could think of. And he recommended Brian Viglione of the Dresden Dolls, also a member, spent a few years as a member of the Violent Femmes. But I called him, and it turned out he'd already, in fact, done a cabaret version of the song like years ago with somebody else, which is crazy that he was even aware of it, let alone had played it. Or maybe he was just shining me on, but whatever. He was down for it. And then I included my friend and collaborator and sometimes co-producer Fernando Perdomo on bass, who's also a big Who fan, and we just took it into the studio and knocked it out. And there was no arrangement written down. The assignment was, we're going to do this song, stick to Lenny's basic arrangement, but we're going to do it in the style of the Who, live at Leeds, sort of emulating the Sparks section on Live at Leeds from Tommy, or actually more like the long extended jam at the end of My Generation, with also a little nods to the song Water, which is a B-side and outtake that Who fans would be familiar with. But that sort of esoteric assignment for these musicians, and we just went in, knocked it out. Luckily, we got a really good footage from our 3 phones, so I was able to cut together a video so people can watch how the performance unfolded.
Well, you got to give me a link to that so I could put that in the notes below this video.
Absolutely.
Folks, we're going to be right back with the most interesting man in the world, Andras Jones.
I probably did not know what I was doing, but that's alright. that's alright. I mean, how smart do you really have to be to screw in a stupid light? Stupid light. But then just like that, I knew I'd been elected. No one else in the room seemed to be affected till the TV sputtered and sparked and I fell. But before I hit the ground, I saw them everywhere I saw. I saw them everywhere I saw. I saw them everywhere. I saw them everywhere. I saw. Well, I got no idea what I was thinking of saying on that fateful night, but it must have felt alright, 'cause I'm told it sounded like a cross between making love and praying, and that sounds about right.
And I actually had planned to like release it probably on Lenny's birthday or something, but it came out so well. And my last song, Dink You in the Face, already had a sort of comedic needling quality. And I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to put my foot even further down on the pedal on that and go from Dink You in the Face to as a preposition, come as a verb. And I'll get onto something a little bit prettier and more soulful with the next track. So it just felt right. You know, and I think watching the video, seeing the video, I was like, hey, this just synchronicity is pushing this one to the front. And we're living in very censorious
I was just
times.
going to say, you said we live in censorious times, even if the censorship looks different now. Lenny was prosecuted by the state. Today, it feels like culture prosecutes itself.
Yeah. There's a lot of self-policing and policing of others, policing of speech. There's all, you know, I think we are in actually far more censorious times than we were at the height, even at the height of like the blacklist in America, which is the
McCarthyism?
era. Yeah, which is the era where Lenny came under fire as well. I think it depends on how you look at censorship. Like, I feel like the amount of information we were able to get back then, so like what was in Time magazine was heavily censored. But what people said in a bar about Time magazine was way less censored. And they were having a conversation. You could have a conversation, maybe in a bar it might be, but in your living room. The conversation you were having in your living room was not censored, was far less censored. I want to say not censored at all, but far less censored. And now all of our interactions are policed by everyone else around us. So what's the term?
I'd help you,
There's a
but I don't know what the term is.
No, there's a term to describe like in a prison where there's a tower at the center that can view everyone. Peter Gabriel just put out a great single from his. No, it's not it. If you look up the, I won't get bogged down in language, but I guess what I'm saying is that we're in a situation where our private interactions are much more heavily censored. Our interpersonal interactions are much more heavily censored than I think they probably were in previous times. And so it just, you know, if it's better or worse, it doesn't really matter. It's a different thing to navigate. And, you know, my strategy, I don't recommend to anyone else, is just to say, well, it, you know, try and police my speech. I'm going to stick with what I learned from Lenny Bruce, which is to talk dirty and attempt to influence people to open the aperture of their curiosity towards the things that they could maybe immediately be offended by or immediately misinterpret. And, look at, like, do what Lenny Bruce is doing in To As a Preposition, Come As a Verb. He's breaking it down. The term is to come. And he's saying, but it's not to come. It's to, which is a preposition, and come, which is a verb. Let's start to, like, decode. That's the name of my last record: Recognize, De-escalate, and Decode. That's what Lenny Bruce does. That's what I attempt to do in all my work, is to try and look at something that's a problem, get it down to the place where I can actually personalize it or relate to it, and then figure out what it really means, so that the next time I encounter that, I don't misinterpret it as just what I've been trained to react to it as opposed to maybe see it in a new way, to have a deeper understanding of something that I had a shallow understanding of before.
Do you think Lenny Bruce, if he was alive, would survive the modern outrage culture we have now?
Well, he would definitely be censored. He would definitely be canceled. And if the way he chose to approach it in his life is the way he approached it now, he would not have bent to it, and he would have stayed. But I don't think he would have I also don't think he would have become reactionary. I think that a lot of times when people are talking about cancellation, there's the tendency, and I understand it. Like, if people are calling you terrible names, it's tempting to want to group a lot of the world to those people and call them names back, or be reactionary to other things that they may like. If someone, I'm going to be specific. If someone is getting yelled at by a bunch of liberals, it's tempting to then reject liberalism. I don't think that's what Lenny Bruce would have done. I think, and it's not what he did in his life. What Lenny Bruce did was to speak back to those liberals and to speak to them about the principles of free speech, or of critical thinking, or of engaging with ideas that are troubling to you with some curiosity,
Kind of a latter day Charlie Kirk. What was his name?
No. I think more like I think more like a latter day Louis C.K. Okay. I don't think Lenny Bruce would want to be compared to Charlie Kirk. No offense to Charlie Kirk, but Lenny Bruce would have hated that guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, just because he would have hated him, but he would have made fun of him mercilessly, just because he was merciless in going after, anyone any sort of religious figure or person who tried to take on that. He would have treated him like he treated Billy Graham. Charlie Kirk would have definitely been in his Religions Inc. speech. I'm talking more about how because Lenny was a comedian. I'm talking about more about how comedians respond to cancel culture, and some of them become reactionary and hostile to liberalism because shitty liberals are being shitty to them. But I think that the good ones, the really good comedians, which Lenny Bruce was, are able to take that, and instead of becoming reactionary, they say, hey, wait a second, liberal, remember what you claim you stand for. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to see Lenny Bruce
hold up the mirror, so to speak.
Yeah, and I would have. I don't want to speak for him. Maybe Lenny Bruce would have loved the opportunity to debate Charlie Kirk, but I really don't think he would like to be compared to him.
Well, I was thinking more of debating him.
Yeah, I would. I don't think that. I think if Lenny's life is anything to go by, he loved a good debate. me and I would have. I love Lenny Bruce. I'm sure that if I could time travel back and we could have an hour-long conversation, part of it would be an argument. Part of it would be an argument about something, and we would probably both enjoy it. I hope.
About to is a preposition, come is a verb. Was there ever temptation to clean it up, and did you actually resist that?
I don't think you could clean it up. I don't think it's that dirty, but I will tell you that I have had a few singles ago, I put out a single called Hating the Haters.
Uh-huh.
Hating the Haters won't
I
make you a
have heard
lover. And there's a line in it that I did get some pushback. I was told that I should change a line or else, well, some musicians chose to not be involved in the recording of it because I wouldn't change the line. And the line is,
don't come in
hating the haters won't make you a lover. Throw love away, and you may discover that the ones that you were convinced to hate were the ones trying to make America smart.
That's beautiful,
but they thought that line was somehow pro-Trump and that I was saying that Trump was smart. And I told them that was not, that thinking that was not smart and made no sense, but it didn't really matter. But this is what I'm saying is like, I could take that, and there's a tendency, and there's a part of me that wants to react to that and be like, oh, anyone who would be that unintelligent and kind of mean and exclusionary and censorious must be a part of a movement and a group of ideas that are also lacking integrity. But I just refuse to let the censorious even majority, own the sort of the good ideas of classical liberalism that someone like Lenny Bruce stood up for. I refuse to let them own it. Just sort of like the same way that like...
Hold your thought. Yeah. We got to jump into a break real quick.
I'm sorry. I'm so verbose. I had too much caffeine.
Your verbosity is welcome here. But okay. Let's get some of your music playing. So let's take a 2-minute break so we can get some of your music going. And we'll be right back, folks, in 2 minutes with Andras Jones.
Still got a record store. You don't see many of them around no more. I used to be on the radio, synchronicity. Yeah, baby, you and me. Every Tuesday night from 6 to 8, we would chaotically congregate. Yeah, but the boring haters couldn't wait. Synchronicity, baby. Yeah, thinking you and me, baby. Gotta recognize, de-escalate, and decode. What's that you ask? Is my town still a community? Well, maybe hypothetically. I used to be on the radio. Escalate and decode the situation. Otherwise, might as well kiss goodbye to our radio station. Recognize, de-escalate, and decode the situation. I'm talking about the truth and the reconciliation. Mandela style. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store.
Gary Dranow here, back with Andras Jones, and we're talking about some heavy concepts, and we're circling around Lenny Bruce, his life, his humor, and even his songwriting.
Yeah,
so
the great Lenny Bruce.
Pick up where we left off, man.
Well, I guess what we're talking about when you're talking about me and my independence as an artist, and we're talking about Lenny Bruce and his legacy, and we're talking about a song like "To" is a preposition, "come" is a verb, which was used as evidence against him in the trials against him. But if you use that as an analogy for
Well, it was
cancellation,
his trial was in Congress, wasn't it?
no, 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 no. He was actually arrested. No, he got busted
Actually,
by
in
cops.
in court, being
Yeah, he got
prosecuted.
busted by cops and got prosecuted in New York and in San Francisco. And as he said, once the first prosecution happened, it sort of became a thing that if Lenny was in town, the cops would target his shows. They would show up. They would write down. They would basically write down his act, their impression of his act, and then use that if to say that he was doing something obscene. So, like an example from the trials would be like he did this. He would sort of do this part of his act where he was being like, I'm not a Catholic, I don't know, but doing something like sort of blessing the audience like a priest would bless their congregation with the mic, and the cop said that he was doing like a masturbatory motion with the mic.
Ah,
So that's the level of it's very much like cancellation. The interpretation of the censorious person is taken as more valid than maybe what actually happened in and certainly take it doesn't care about the artist's intent or the context that it's in. It's seizing upon one thing, which is Lenny doing this with a microphone and making it into something that it wasn't even that it wasn't. Obviously he talks about masturbation in other situations, so it's not even like he's shying away from that topic. Um, but yeah, so he was basically drawn into a series of court battles, which cost money and are psychologically draining. And he did something that most critics of Lenny Bruce sort of the line on him is that his comedy suffered because he started reading from the transcripts of his trials as part of his act and doing his act around what was happening to him in the courts. I
mhm.
couldn't disagree with that interpretation of Lenny more. I think that Lenny did what an artist does, is that they took the trials and the things that were happening in their life, and
And
he
turned
went
it into
and he
art.
took it to his audience and turned it into his comedy. And it's also very much in the spirit of Mort Saul reading from, who was a comedian of that time, reading from the paper and doing his bits, which was one of the big influences on Lenny Bruce. Um, and I,
Was
and in
taking
the
things that are topical and making them central in his humor.
Yeah, and for him, not for Lenny Bruce, like when Lenny became the story, he continued to push in that way. And no, it wasn't good for his career, but it was great art. And unfortunately, in the Bob Fosse film with Dustin Hoffman, they make that period of his performance life look a lot more pathetic than if you actually go and watch the actual footage of Lenny that exists from comedy he did in San Francisco in the mid 60s or early 60s. That
Here's what I keep
was
coming
great.
back to. Lenny used humor to expose hypocrisy. You use songs. Do you think music can still do that effectively, or does it land differently now?
Oh, I don't think, well, I don't know. I don't know about effectively. I would just say I use songs, but I think it's also humor. I think there's different kinds like Indian independent. There's humor that makes you laugh, and then there's a sense of humor about the world that allows you to figure things out. And a lack of that sense of humor does lead to perceiving words as dangerous as opposed to
Or
like if there's a
literal?
dangerous word, it's also kind of funny. I mean, not funny in like a laughing sense, but if you have a sense of humor about it,
Funny,
uh,
weird.
or just I like that's think of the idea of a sense of humor. Like
Hmm.
I have a sense that this is funny. That doesn't mean I'm laughing at it. Like I can watch someone, whatever. I don't know where your listeners stand on him, but Donald Trump is obviously frightening to a lot of people, myself included. But if you have a sense of humor, you can be appalled, you can be terrified, and you can also sit back and look and be like, there's something about this that I can navigate better with my sense of humor.
Fertile ground for humor.
Well, you can have a sense of outrage too.
Yeah, well,
I
yeah.
my my outrage. I try to, and I think I must be channeling Lenny here because this feels like very much a Lennyism. But I try to channel or leaven my outrage with a sense of humor. If and that's because that makes my own life experience better. It's an artistic way of approaching the world. Um, I know a lot of artists who don't approach the world that way, which is so I'm not trying to. I think there's something to having a sense of fury and a sense of outrage in your work. I certainly have it in mine. Like I said, I just try and leaven it with a sense of humor. And so going back to your question, can music, does music and have the power to change things or affect things in a positive way? I have no idea. I know that, but I do know this: music and comedy and art have had a profound effect on me and helping me get through the difficulties in my life, and especially in that they've inspired me to make the music and the art, and making it makes my life better. So I know that there's the capacity for other people's work to make my life better, and I know that my making my music or my what I'm doing artistically, even having this
Might
conversation
affect
with you.
others in the same way.
Well, no, I don't even care about that. It makes my life better. That's what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
I do
Gotcha.
it because I'm trying to do the things that make life survivable, and allowing inspiration to draw me into creating stuff. There was a time when I was younger when I really did think my goal was to affect other people with my music. And then I realized that other people don't need, for the most part, no one needs any of this stuff, but I need to make it. And if I base my need to make it on other people's need to get it, I'll be very frustrated. But if I base my need to make it on, I'm just going to make stuff that pleases the hell out of me. And now I live in a world where I can just put it someplace where people want to find it, it's there. It's not sitting on my hard drive or a hard drive in Canada. It's in the world. I think it's beautiful because it made my life more beautiful. And so it it has made my life better. Music has definitely makes people's lives better. Can my music make anyone's life better? I hope so. But
But you
if that
have
was my
no
goal,
frickin'
I would
idea.
be very sad. Hmm?
I was just saying, but you have no frickin' idea. Um,
Yeah, and I know,
uh,
and yeah, what does it matter,
yeah,
really? I mean, it matters if you're
you
trying
write
to
for
make a
your own
living
you
doing
write
it.
for your own sanity, not other people's framework.
Yeah, and I guess there's a part of me. I guess if I'm writing for anyone, if there's someone out there who's like me, then there are aspects of what I do in my work that they will appreciate that other people who are not like me won't appreciate. And I know that for myself, when I can find something in an artist like Lenny Bruce, who was dead before I ever met him, and he makes a reference to something, and I feel like, oh, he is like me. He
He's
thinks
speaking to
like
me.
me. And that means that the way I think has a friend inside of my own mind. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. I'd love it if that's the impact that I can have on anyone. But that's
Oh,
but they but
last question.
yeah.
We burned through
I'm
an
sorry.
hour, and we're going to end it with I hope dink you in the face, but
Okay.
we'll see what my editor puts in there. But a lot of your songs feel like scenes from films that don't exist. You've even said that they're like little movies that will never get made. when you're writing a song like I Saw Them Everywhere, are you thinking in images, characters, or pure emotion?
Well, with a song like that, I mean, they're little story. They're well, there are two different kinds. That song is like an imagined story that didn't happen to me, that I know of. But the song is about a guy who, in changing a light bulb, probably gets electrocuted like it gets somewhat electrocuted, or something happens with the electricity, and as he's falling, he has a glimpse of what's behind the veil of life. I saw them everywhere. We don't know what he sees, and I don't want to tell people what he sees, but he sees them everywhere. Make of that what you will. And so that's putting myself in the place of an experience that I haven't had, and then just basically improvising like an actor would, of like what would I experience in this scene, in this imagined scene. But as I was talking about before, most of my songwriting, particularly now, is usually in response to something that I'm really frustrated with, or struggling with in the world. The way I've described it to a friend of mine is...
Sorry about my dogs, man. I can't
That's okay.
get them
That's
to
okay.
shut
I
them
love
up.
dogs. That songwriting is sort of like a samurai sword for the samurai. Like, I'm not going to pull my sword unless I'm going into battle. I'm not just going to like wave it around for fun to like, because like I said, songs are spells. And if you're not really, as they say, straight with the medicine, those spells can come back on you hard. And when I think, going back to one of your questions earlier, when I think of having to sing a song that you wrote when you were young and you didn't know yourself, and you were writing just from a place of trauma, and when
now you've got perspective on that song.
Well, once the medicine in that song becomes poison, you don't want to ever have to sing it again. And there are people who have to go out there and sing that song that hurts them to sing it, if they're really in touch with it, over and over again, because that's what their career is based around. And I have great compassion for those people, because I could have been one of them easily. I remember the song that people really dug of mine back then, and I would not want to sing it all the time.
Okay. Well, this has been a fascinating hour. It's gone by way too fast, so hopefully I can have you back on the show so we could dig in even deeper. And everybody, this was the Gary Dranow Show with Andras Jones, a man of many talents and a deep thinker. And check the description below the video. We'll have links for songs and other links that Andras wants to have you all see. And Andras, what do you want to part with?
Can I just really quickly say, if people want to find my music, my book, my podcasts, my writing, any of my stuff, you can find it at previouslyyours.com. That was my old band, Mr. Jones and the Previous. Or you can just find it at andrasjones.com. I'm there, and that has links to all the places where you can find me. I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook and Instagram. And thanks a lot, Gary. I really appreciate your having me on your show. And I hope that you've done such a great job pronouncing my name well. I hope that everyone pronounces your name correctly going forward, Gary Dranow.
Dranow, like liquid plumber.
Yes.
One last question. I see a guitar on your couch. Which guitar is it?
It is my deceased uncle's 1964
parlor
Kill. Guitar.
Yeah,
it's the guitar. I'm told it's the guitar that Nick Drake used to record a lot of his stuff. But I love it. I fell in love with it, and I use it for all of my recordings. It doesn't have any of the electrics. I didn't want to mess, so I actually bought a modern version of this that I play out. but for recordings and at home and for local gigs, you might see this.
This is your vehicle.
This is
your baby.
It's funny. I went to visit a friend who lives in a kind of a rough neighborhood yesterday, and I was going to meet with him, and I almost didn't bring the guitar, but then I was like, you know what? This guitar isn't a possession. This guitar is a companion. I'm not going to not bring my real tool. You can't steal this from me. You could try, but if you did, then this sacred artifact would belong with somebody else. So, yeah, this is my baby.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got to meet it. And I'm glad we got the conversation started. It shall continue if I have anything to say.
Thanks. If you ever make it out to LA, Gary, I'd love to meet you. And if
my mother lives on Wilshire Boulevard in one of the high rises. She's 100 years old and plays Scrabble and bridge. So kind of an amazing woman. So there's a chance I may be out to LA because my manager lives there as well, Larry DeVoskin. So
yes.
So hang with me, don't go away.